double, triple duty today. So it is going to give a demonstration, a beginner's demonstration. We have two uh, bonus demonstrations. This one is beginners, and then we will have a more advanced one later on in the program. But today, Andrew is going to give a demonstration of Shri Jyoti Star. Shri Jyoti Star, I've been using it for years. It has got so much information that the other day I found something new in it on the eclipses. I just was tapping something else and it brought eclipse information. And now you have a page of eclipses as well. So there's a lot of information, but you need a little bit of kind of help from Andrew. So that's why we have this here. So Andrew, over to you.
Thank you very much. Yes, there's so much in it that I forget what's in.
That's true.
So basically what I've done for this session in order to make it well organized is that I prepared a couple of short presentations. The first one is really just some tips and tricks for the basics, which is very good for those who are perhaps less familiar, though everyone might learn something. And then the second part is I'm going to go and really show off the Muhurta tools, which is something I haven't really done before. So that's how we're going to do this. And in between and afterwards, we can have questions. People may ask this and that, so I can respond to those. All right, so this is the basic working area I call the main screen. As you can see, there's nothing on it at the moment. This is how a page is before you add anything. Adding things is really easy. We'll have a look at that. I just wanted you to note this screen has got a grid on it. So the basic idea is there's a grid. You can have either a coarse grid like this or a fine grid, which allows very precise positioning of objects. And you can turn them on and off with these buttons at the top, or, these choices are in other places as well. So let's go to the data entry screen. The data entry screen can be reached in multiple ways. You can click on the date or time of one of these two charts. You see at the top, there's a red chart and a blue chart. This is the transit chart and the date and time for that chart. So these charts are loaded, but nothing is showing because we haven't chosen what we want to see yet. Now, in front of each chart, there are some buttons. This one will take you into the data entry to edit this chart. This one will take you for a new transit chart. And the same thing over here for what I call the primary, this one, the red one here. Or you can just click on the date and you can go straight into the data entry for editing. All right, so in the in the data entry screen, you can see there is the name of the database at the top. Now, you can have multiple databases. You can move charts between databases. You can merge databases. It's very convenient. And the industry standard is to have all, large numbers of charts in a single database because it's much more efficient for the computer. Now, I want to draw attention to just a few things in this data entry screen because, there's a lot. It's extremely powerful. I don't think it's any software remotely like it. There's so much power in this, but, you only need things when you need them, right? But there's certain things which are important is the lists. There's just key things I want to mention. So here you see the word lists. And then there's a drop-down box which shows you all the different lists you can get. So the first one says unsorted or chronological. So every time you enter a chart, it appears at the top of this list. That's extremely convenient because you can quickly get to the charts you entered recently. I mean, I use this like 99% of the time. But, you know, if you like an alphabetical list, you just switch to the alphabetical list, which is the one above there. And then everything's sorted alphabetically. Now, whether you have the first name and the last name, or the last name, comma, first name, that's up to you. And the option to change it is here in the file menu. See last, first, like that. And I'll just mention that you can switch the date format here between American style and international style. So you'll see I'm running it in international style. That's because having been brought up in England, it's a bit of a habit. All right, so there are other lists. By the way, on the right of this drop down are some quick buttons. So AL means alphabetical. UN is the unsorted list. LI for the linked list. So every time when you create a chart, you have the option of linking other charts to it. So that's extremely convenient. If I get a couple, I'll enter, say, the wife's chart, and then I'll link the husband's chart to it. Just because, you know, one is usually the primary client, and then it's extremely convenient to find all the other charts. You know, children, events, all these things can be linked. So that's extremely convenient. If you click on the LI, then you find all the linked charts. And if it's blank, that doesn't mean your database has disappeared. I get the occasional email, but it's just because there's nothing in the linked list for the current, like in this case, Yogananda is the primary chart we're working with. And anything we link to his chart, like his guru or whatever, would appear here. Then we have the A and B group. So the A group consists of certain charts, which I've tagged as A, or charts I've tagged as B. And it's just very convenient when we're working with databases, is sometimes you want to group some charts, so you can tag them, A or B. And then if you like, you can convert that into a separate database. You just go to the file menu and you say, make file from current list. Having selected that list, of course, you have to select the list. So this, now the A list is selected, so that would become a separate database. So this is a very convenient thing. Now inside the software, in many places you're doing research, you want to search for something and it collects a whole bunch of charts which have that particular yoga or something in common. And they usually used, what usually happens is that if you ask it, it'll make them into the B group. So it's best to use the A group for your favorites, and the B group you'll be using from time to time when the software collects groups of charts that you want to work with for a while. For example, you see the search menu here. You click on search and you can search different things: the name, the date, the birthplace, status, occupation, notes, events, rating, or the whole record. So you want to know all the people you put in, and you put a particular word in the notes. So you can search on that. You'll get a list here. And then if you click here, it says make list into B group. So automatically all those charts are tagged as B. And that's a very handy, very useful, because you can then work with them. So for example, I don't know, something about them, some event which they have in common, you know. So that's that. That's a very convenient setup, this search. For searching things other than the name. If you want to just search the name, you can put a string into here and click search. As soon as you type something in, this thing will come up. And then it'll look through for that particular string, and it will find the first one. And then you can go next, like that. Good. So apart from these important groupings. We have male charts, female charts. Then we have a lot of different listings based on the most simple astrological things, such as the tropical or sidereal positions of planets in rashis and nakshatras, or signs and nakshatras. So you can get an immediate list, like all the planets with, this is the tropical Sagittarius. So we have Rajneesh and others. Okay, so I mean, it's just one of the ways in this software you can sort. There are much more powerful ways of sorting and searching in the software, but this I created for the early days, and I left it in because sometimes I use it. You want quickly to find people with, say, Ashwini Nakshatra. So you've got the list immediately. You don't have to fiddle around at all searching for them. Okay, so this is a few key things. Notice that there's a help menu here, and there's a help menu inside the main screen. And both of them have access to the online videos. This data entry means help on this screen, detailed help on this screen. There's the manual, and then the quick tips. The quick tips brings up this little, they're just tips, but I think they're helpful. There's quite a few of them, but if you're ever wanting to spend a few minutes, you can scan through those. They're all things I thought would be particularly useful for beginners with the software. But I do primarily recommend people watch the small videos. Okay, so if we click OK plus transit, we'll get the chart and the transit chart loaded. Now, which transit chart? It'll load whichever location is the last one you used. So, okay, on mobile phones, it's very easy to find out where you are because they have location services. But most PCs don't have that set up. There's no GPS inside most computers. So you have to tell it where you are. So there's a feature. You see, it says here, show locations. So these are the locations that have been entered at this point. But okay, you're not in Los Angeles or San Francisco, maybe you're in New York. So you click new location, and then it tells you to just enter the city, town, and the country or US state. That's all you have to do. You don't have to fiddle around. You don't have to click anywhere. You just start typing. So we type New York. And the best thing to do is hit the tab key on the keyboard. Every keyboard has a tab key on the upper left. Or you can click in this US date here. And then NY is enough. Hit tab again. And it's created it. You see, I put a small n, so it's now called now New York. This now can be edited. Suppose you want to put a capital N and a space like that. Then you can click update, and that's what you've got. So now when you say OK plus transit, we can't do that because just click OK here. So you've got this one. Now let's go back to Yogananda. And we'll switch it to be the primary. This little thing here switches between the two of them. So now you see, because it was a now chart that I had created, then there wasn't a way, you can't create a OK plus transit because it's already a transit. But if you have got a regular natal chart, then you'll get this OK plus transit option. And you can use that to create. So when you load a native, suppose you load your own chart and you just click this, immediately you'll get the current transits calculated for you for the current time and for that place. Now there's another button called OK plus special. And this button has a few options. So the first one is to create a Varshphal chart. Some people are very keen on Varshphal. It's an annual chart based on the solar return. So interesting and important concept. Now there's a more Vedic version that is used, very much by the sort of, you could say, Arabic or, those. It's traditional, but not specifically Vedic. The Vedic method of the new year chart is called the Tithi Pravesh, which is when you enter, in the sky, the particular lunar day on which you were born is coming, which can be within a couple of weeks of your regular birthday. So I find this a very powerful and effective method. So you just select Tithi, you choose the year, and you click OK. Normally, you won't change the town and country because it's traditionally done for the birthplace, but the option is there if you're into that. So if you click OK now, it's gone and created the Tithi Pravesh for 2021 for this particular person. And now if you put something on the screen and you point this at it, that will apply. So for example, let's have a look at this Tithi Pravesh chart. So we'll just click here, you can start in the upper left, and we'll turn on the grid so you can see more clearly what I'm doing. So we decide we're going to have a chart here. So I click here, and I think I'll have a regular, what we saw, Rashi chart, we say. This is the D1 chart, the most basic chart. So since it's the first divisional chart, I mean, I'm lazy. I like typing one letter rather than multiple letters. So I just type the number 1, and then say we chose the large sign D1. I could have typed sign, or I could have typed Rashi. Anyway, here it is. And because I typed large, it's taken up 4 spaces rather than 1. And here is the South Indian chart. Now, that's because the last chart I created was South Indian. The default is that whatever you chose last, it will do the next time. That can be switched off. But anyway, if you want to switch it to North Indian, you can click on it, and then you can type north, a little bit of north, and you'll see style of chart. And you've got the choices, say North Indian. All right, now this is Yogananda's chart. But we want to see his Tithi Pravesh chart. You just click on it, and you see native for this. Native means the name of the chart. I mean, it's confusing in a way that in astrology, we talk about charts, and what we mean is the birth data of the person whose chart it is. The chart is really the diagram, and the birth data is the birth data, but just out of habit, we're all usually talking about charts when we actually mean is the birth data. So anyway, another way of saying is native. Native is the birth data. So here we can say, this is the Tithi Pravesh chart. So we select it and we click done. And now you see the heading has gone blue, meaning that this is the one. You see this secondary chart, we call a secondary chart, is now the one that you're looking at. So it's very easy to switch between them. And there are other ways that are perhaps even easier, which I'll show you. So that's how you set that up. Now, suppose you want to move it across, you can just grab hold of it with the mouse. You see the cursor has moved, and then we drag it across. Now, charts snap to this grid. So you've got to drag it far enough so that it'll snap. Sometimes you'll drag a little bit and then think nothing is happening. So please, you have to drag enough so that it'll snap to the next place. If you switch on the fine grid, see this, with all little green lines, then of course it's, snapping to the fine grid. So it's more, you can see what you're doing immediately. And you can control the fineness of the grid also. So when you're creating very pretty pages, you'll probably want to put things in the middle, or, you do what you like. You can put a border around the page, you can put a background photograph, you can really pretty things up. And if you decide that this, say this chart's a little big, you see in the bottom right-hand corner of the chart, there's a tiny triangle. Notice the cursor has changed. When the cursor looks like this, that's the fine grid cursor. You just grab hold of that, you see it change again. And now you can just adjust it as you wish. So there's a lot of cool tools for doing things. So sort of the basics of layouts, how to choose something. Let me just show you a couple of quick, very convenient things. Now, if you right-click, because when I right-click, it'll pop up. Here it is. Hopefully, yeah, I think you'll be able to see it. It tends to sometimes. Okay, it's where it's just a matter of getting it on the screen when you're recording this recording software. Okay, so if you right-click on something, you get a lot of useful, quick links. So the first one is called "What's This?" So "What's this?" means it'll go into this context-sensitive help. In other words, it'll give you help on this particular chart, table, graph, whatever it is. So that's really the easiest way of figuring things out. There's huge amount of help, just huge, and there's help on everything. So basically, whatever you put on the screen, you think, okay, I don't know how this is calculated. It won't necessarily tell you every detail of the calculation, but it'll give you the basic ideas, helpful information, and that'll open up the help file at the right page. Then there are lots of other various useful things here, color schemes. This scheme I'm using, it's kind of my favorite. I call it the natural color scheme, but there are lots of other color schemes, as you can see here, some of which are based on strength. You can get the color scheme based on strength. There we go. Here we go to say Parashara dignity. So now you see that planets that are in higher dignity are a more yellow or orange color, and the lower dignity, like Jupiter and Capricorn, is a bit of a purplish. That's the default color for a low dignity. Now you can change the color, so it's easy to do. You just click somewhere and type edit colors. But it gives you an immediate idea. You see in this chart, you have a situation where Jupiter appears weak. Now, when you find something like that, you have to study carefully, because obviously in the chart of Yogananda, Jupiter was not weak. So there has to be a reason for it, and that you have to study. For example, it's in the 7th house from the moon. That immediately gives it strength. Then it's in the sign of Saturn, and Saturn is strong in its own sign. So again, you see Jupiter gets stronger. So you mustn't jump to immediate conclusions, but this is a one method for looking at strength. Okay, I'm going to go back to the natural scheme. Since I just like it, right? Okay, so the pop-up we were looking at. So apart from that, you can make things transparent, which means if you have a background image, it comes through. Sometimes that's fun. You can cycle the title. You can do this also with a button at the top of the page. It says title on it. It's just off the screen because I'm not recording, on a very big thing so as to overwhelm the bandwidth. But anyway, if you cycle the title, then the first thing that happens is the name appears at the top. So if you're one of those people who like black and white and you're having everything in black and white, this is how you find out which native applies to this chart. And also for charts like this, you can get it to show the beginning and end of the rising of that sign. So we say, okay, he's born with Gemini rising. We'd like to know what time of day Gemini started and what time of day it ended. Or if this was, say, a Navamsha chart, we want to know how long that ascendant was rising. So it'll put that in the title. It's very simple. I mean, we just cycle the title, and then we see here, that's the. So this is extremely convenient. You can have multiple charts on the screen for different Vargas, each one with its own timing put on the title. So this is one of the many, many tools for rectification and other related sort of topics which are provided for in the software. Good. Now, we're going back to the pop-up. So you've got things like change all charts on this page too. So we can go back to, say, South Indian. So if there are 10 charts on the page, they'll all flip over. So that's sometimes very convenient. Now, in the South Indian chart, you can put the birth data in the middle of this. There is a very fundamental concept in astrology, even some Western astrologers believe in this, which is that the center of a chart is holy and should not be messed up. It should be only things you should put in the center of a chart to say a lotus or Om, or maybe a little picture of God, because you should remember that that center is the divine place. So putting birth data covering the middle of the chart is a sort of sacrilege. I don't know about some of the Jyotish software vendors who don't seem to be trained as Jyotishis. But anyway, in my software, it puts the birth data slightly off the center, and you can put Om in the middle. Like this, you just click, type in Om, or actually AUM is better. There you go. So it's selected, done. See? And if we want to put the birth data, we'll just type something like South Indian data, birth data and sender. So the search is very intelligent, really. It's you can put in just a little bit of several words and you'll find the closest match. So here we select that, click done. So here you see this is how it looks nice. Right? Okay, so now sometimes in charts, because the way the default is that the size of the glyphs is made sort of pretty much as big as there's room for. And so if there's only one planet in a box, it comes out bigger than other places where there's, say, 5 planets in the box. But that's not, you're not forced to have that. You can change it. So for example, here it says equalize symbol size in charts. And then further down, you see this chart. And here there are multiple choices. You have either equalize or maximum size, that's the default, or a little bit smaller difference, or the smallest. So anyway, this is what you get. So it's really up to you what you like. It's your choice. Okay, so under this chart, you see those things. Then you can, they're quick link for choosing if you want, say, some degrees. You saw that something about big degrees, that's already for doing presentations, projecting on the screen. You want the screen degrees bigger so people can read them at a distance. Now there are lots of more choices for this, but I just put those quick ones in here, so you don't have to search for them. And then sometimes, here are some quick choices about what you want to see in the chart, like 9 planets, the Ruda Lagna and the Upapada Lagna, or the 9 planets with Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto thrown in. So these, it's a quick, you can have pretty much whatever you like in the chart. There's probably 100 choices, but this is just quick, right? Convenience. Okay. So now here's a lovely one here. These few ones. This is to do with select. So select native of this means we can quickly choose one of these things, or we can choose any planet or any chart from our database. And if you choose a chart from the database that is not one of the 2 ones loaded, then the heading of the chart will come out green. So sometimes it's useful. I mean, you can have literally up to 35 different natives on one screen, but you can definitely have a family of all the charts, of all the family members at the same time. So that is very convenient. Now you can switch this over. So that's extremely convenient. This switch to the, basically flips between these two. You can do that for the whole page using the button at the top between the 2 names. But this flips the one particular thing that you right-clicked on. On a Mac, right-click exists. You just have to enable it inside the settings. And then depending on whether you're using a mouse or a trackpad or whatever it is, you just have to look into slightly how the settings of the Macintosh works. But once you've got it set up, then you're pressing some button or you're clicking your mouse or trackpad, it works good. So, wherever in Shri Jyoti Star, it has some shortcut, and you see the shortcuts here, these little shortcuts. It says Control or Shift. There is a version of this on the Mac, but since the Mac has different names, it has a Control and Shift and Function and things. So you just have to find out which one is working on your Mac. Right? So this is the global switch, and this is the switch for this. And then there's the things we looked at. You can hide the title if you want to. And then there are various other things. Now, probably the most interesting one here is copy or save this. So you can copy any chart, like an object from the page, like a chart or a table or a graph, or you can copy the whole page, or you can save it to a file, or you can actually email it if you have an email client set up, like Microsoft Outlook or Mozilla's Thunderbird, something like that. But a live mail, But if you're using webmail, like Gmail or Yahoo, you can copy and paste. And generally that works. Sometimes these webmail things, they have a setting which allows you have to turn on the copy paste thing, but normally it's just working nicely. So you can easily email charts or pages of charts. And if you want to send a whole bunch of pages, there is a thing, you see it says save all pages as PDF. And that will create a file which you can then attach. And then delete this object. That's sometimes handy. You don't have to delete something, you just replace it with something else. That most of the time, but just occasionally you want to delete it, so there it is. Okay, this is the end of part 1 of this video. I hope you enjoyed it.
Andrew,
okay.
Will you? Do you want me to read out the question so you can read?
Yes, that's fine.
So Georgina has asked, does it put longitude, latitude, etc. automatically from place of birth? Second part is how and where is alternative Vimshottari Dasha? How does this operate on Mac? So these are 3 questions.
Okay, I'm not fully understanding the first question. When you say latitude and longitude, are you referring to celestial or geocent, the earthly latitude and longitude?
Yeah, it automatically does it. I
It
can
does.
answer
I
the
mean,
question. Yeah. And where is the alternative Vimshottari Dasha?
well, maybe in the second session we'll do a whole thing on the dashas.
And how well does this?
Basically, it's in the dasha options.
Okay, we'll see that next time in the advance. Yeah. How well does this operate on Mac?
Hundreds of people are using it happily. I get very good
Yeah.
feedback. I mean, occasionally somebody has some extremely complex setup, and then there's some little bit questions when they're setting up, but basically everyone seems to be happily using it. And now it's even works on the latest. Apple changes the rules rather drastically, usually about once a year, but somehow it's kept going. It's working well on the latest Macs. So as long as you have the right, you need crossover or parallels or something. These things are not very expensive. There's even one free one, but I think it's better to spend a few dollars and get one of the paid uh, assistant apps, because you get some support and they're more professionally done. But basically, it's pretty easy. I have it running on my little MacBook Air with Big Sur and all that. But so it's just a matter of, it's all explained on my website. If you look at the page about the Apple Mac, you'll find all the information.
Somebody has given feedback on this. They said, I just installed it on Mac with Play on Mac, and it works well and easy. This is Sadanand.
Oh, good, because Play on Mac is free, so it's like you can't really do it better than that.
Yeah.
I did tweak it to work on Play on Mac. I mean, I personally would recommend crossover, but Play on Mac works. He's happy, so that's great.
Okay, I don't know. Vicky asked a question. How do you get back to the grid? And then she seems to have answered it. I found I have to go to a new page.
Not necessarily. The grid gets switched on and off by that button, or you could do it other place, like in the choices and options. You can turn it on and off. So you remember that button in the thing? I was just clicking the button at the top with the little grid on it. That turns the grid on and off.
Okay, and Georgina has, can you have planets without different colors?
Absolutely. You can have anything you like, really. Under that list, you see when I said the global color scheme or the color scheme for the page, one of the choices is monochrome. You can have everything black. Then you can set the background to be white or whatever color you like. So you can set it up as you like. You'll see many of the presenters at the BAVA conference are using my software, and they have different, like remember Salbani basically had a two-tone setup with all the planets one color, and then some other features like Aruda in a different color. So it's really easy to set it up.
And you can also do just black and white.
You can do black and white. That's right.
Everything. Yeah.
I have too much Venus. I like color, but there we are.
Yeah, I also like color, but yeah. So Andrew, you can continue with your next set.
Okay, great. Yeah, so this is a bit slightly perhaps more advanced, but it's a very interesting topic to see how the Muhurta tools work. So I've cleared the page. You can see the grid. It's switched on here. And what we're going to do is look at these Muhurta features, which are really an outstanding and probably unique aspect of Shri Jyoti Star. There is something somewhat similar in some other softwares, but not to the extent that you'll find in Shri Jyoti Star. So under the layout examples, we have a couple of choices. See Muhurta 1, Panchanga and impact on natal graphs, and Muhurta 2, Panchanga transits, retrogression graphs. So there are a number of what I call Muhurta graphs, and not all of them are included in these two examples. So I'll show you how to use the other ones. Let's select the second one. I tend to use it more often than the first. It takes a moment to load because, as you can see, there's a massive amount of calculation that has to be done. Especially, you see the retrogression is for a whole year. So up the top here, we have the Panchanga. And the Panchanga is, one of the most critical parts of choosing a good time. I mean, the first and foremost consideration for the typical Indian astrologer is to get a good Panchanga. So basically, for whatever type of event you've selected, which is described here, there are certain good solar days, I mean days of the week, based on the sunrise, certain lunar days or tithis, and certain nakshatras, which are suitable for that particular event. So to change the event, you just click somewhere on the chart, and then you get this, and you just click on the ticked one here, and it takes you into a list of options for, so suppose we're doing a marriage muhurta, we just click marriage, and then it's now the marriage muhurta. So some of the coloring will change because the indication is all based on the coloring. The solar day is the same, but is it a good solar day? So basically, for most cases, Saturday, Sunday, and Tuesday are not considered auspicious because they're ruled by malefics. Now, for any particular chart, one has to think, because the people you're working for, who have say, want to get married, you have to consider their chart carefully and see, whether those days are actually beneficial for them. But for most cases, what we want, particularly for marriage, is some kind of softness, some benefic energy. And so it's best to go with Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, taking into account, of course, that if it's a Monday, the moon should not be in very poor shape, and particularly the Monday, so we have to be very cautious with. And then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we have to see, what condition there is, for the benefic. Is the benefic going forward or backwards? Is it debilitated? These things we have to pay attention to. But basically, the first thing we're looking for is for a good day, and a good day means as much green as possible. Now, this is what we call the cut traffic light scheme. So red is generally not recommended, green is good, and the orange is okay. So the great advantage of this graph is that you can see pretty much at a glance. It doesn't take much to see where the green is. And you see that the particular time that one is currently working with, and that here is this blue chart, because this blue heading means that this date is based on the secondary, what I call the native 2 chart, and it's with reference to the primary chart. I mean, I'm not trying to get Yogananda married, but this is just an example. So the primary chart here, the red one, is making a difference only insofar as that is used for some of the calculations, particularly this star quality or Tarabala. So if you see Jan, that means Janma. So this is the Janma Nakshatra, or the, if someone's born, say, with Ashwini Nakshatra, that means the moon is in Ashwini, then all of the nakshatras with, particularly Ashwini, with all of the nakshatras that are ruled by Ketu, say Ashwini, Magha, and Mula, they all have some energy of being Janma Nakshatra. They're not the same, but they have some similarity. That's why the color coding is the same. Normally what we do is we divide the zodiac into 3 groups of 9, and there's a repetition starting from the Janma Nakshatra. Good. So anyway, that is certainly important. And then down the bottom here, which may look slightly different on the version you've got. This is the Jaimini version we're looking at here, but this is just some kind of measure of the positivity based on the Vara, that means the solar day, the Tithi, the lunar day, and the Nakshatra. So there are, in some books, there are some particular ways of putting them together and giving a result. So, I mean, the green is good. The orange is okay. Whether you use these or not, that's up to you. And then we have a thermometer here, which is doing its own estimation. So, for example, this time, this looks pretty good. It's all green, except for one, the Tarabala for this particular person. So this is close to 100% green. So it's a pretty good time. Now, suppose we decide to move it to some other time, you can just grab hold of this little line and drag it. And when you drag it, everything else on the page changes because the date and time of the secondary chart is changing. So what we see is we see the chart of this time, Rashi and Navamsha, and then we see the strengths here, and of course the retrogression story here. Because for many astrologers, retrogression is considered something very important. I mean, some people won't do anything if Mercury is retrograde. And then, Mars being retrograde is another thing that's often considered to be undesirable. And sometimes even the benefics like Jupiter and Venus going retrograde can have quite dramatic effects on people. So the retrogression needs to be considered. That's why I've put these 3 graphs on this particular page. And then this is the Panchanga for this particular time, just so you got the detail. So all in all, this is a very convenient and fast way of finding a good time. Now, all of these graphs can drill down or drill out. And you see it says month here. So if we click here, it's now week. And if we click again, it's day. So the best thing, you start with the month and you say, okay, this day looks good, or this few days. Then you go down to the week and you pick something. And so now at this stage, you want to see the detail of the day, because if you get down to the day level, then all the times are showing up. And in future versions of the software, then it will show even the horrors and the Kala Vedas and Rahu Kalam down the bottom here. That's coming soon. At the moment, you probably won't find that. So it's extremely detailed analysis of the day. See, here's the sunrise at 6:02. And this is where the lunar day is changing from the 12th to the 13th. 13 means the 13th day. And then here we have the half lunar day. And this is the abbreviation for the name of the Karana, what we call the Karana. And then here is the nakshatra. So you see this is Hasta starting here. So, once you get used to the short forms of the nakshatras, then this is very convenient. And so yogas and so forth. So there's a lot of detail. Here's the waxing and waning. So this is a waxing period. This S is for Shukla, or waxing, and the time of this particular lunar day starting. So this one will always be the same time as the lunar day here. But here it says waxing or Shukla, and here it says 13, the Triyodashi. So you can expand out, and if you get to the limit of what expansion is possible, it'll go back. It cycles. So this Takes a bit of time for the computer to calculate with the current speed of chips. So that's why I limited it to a month. But you see, suppose you have got a month and you want to move to the next month, there are a couple of easy ways of doing that. One thing is to just grab hold of this thing and drag it to the end. Carefully. When you get to the end, it should jump to the next month. Yeah, it's in May. So it's at the beginning of May now. Another way would be to change the date here. You can do that with, you click here and you set this to say 30 days. And then if you click the button here, it's going to go to June. Well, actually, it's still in May after 30 days. Here's June, you see. So there's also the time change bar here, which lets you move forward a month at a time. So this one takes into account the length of each month. It's not just a 30-day thing. And you can move by the 7 days, 1 day, 1 hour, 1 Rashi, 1 Navamsha, 10 minutes, 1 minute, like that. So with this, you've got most of the choices you need. And if you want to go second by second, then you go up to here and set it up there. Another way of scanning over a year rather quickly is to go down to the retrogression chart, because here we have the whole year. Now, we don't have to have the whole year. You can reduce this to a month, which sometimes is useful. Otherwise, if you have a year, then see, it takes a moment to calculate. You can just grab hold of this and move it to another month. And then you are where you want to be. So that's very convenient. Good. So these are some of the graphs. Now let's try replacing, this by the way is the strengths for the planet, for the transiting planets. And this can be done. This is normally based, this is a week. And each one of these little boxes is the time it takes for the ascendant to rise through one sign. So that's why, there's a lot of boxes. And it's taking into account the position of the planets relative to the ascendant, as well as their strength due to dignity, aspects, and dispositors and other factors. So it's rather thorough. This is what I call the multi-factor calculation. This again can be drilled down into the day level. You see, there's all the rising signs for the day. So this is also quite helpful. Now, I always think it's good to look at the actual chart, but this gives you the basic idea. And it gives you an estimate of the positivity. So like, suppose we go to here, what you see if you look up here is that this is now Aries rising and it's showing green. Well, we got Venus and the Moon rising. It's two benefics, it's good. Now, these, of course, are South Indian charts. You can easily switch them to North Indian charts. It all depends really on what the last chart you were using. So if you're in the habit of using one kind of chart, then even when you load the page, it'll come out with that kind of chart. Now you can even go down like this. Is you click on this 3 here. Now this is every Drekana. This is the Drekana chart. The Rashi chart plus the Drekana chart. In terms of the strength, it's adding the Rashi chart to the strength of the Drekana chart and giving you a sort of total result. So if you click on the Navamsha 9 here, you'll get a combination of the Navamsha and the Rashi. So this is another, rather powerful technique for analyzing planets. Now, this is the strength of the planets in transit. There's a graph for strengths of planets as they're impacting the natal chart of the of the primary person. So if you go into, you click on anywhere where you want to put something different, and then you'll see down here are all the Muhurta graphs. Or you could just type a bit of Muhurta. By calling them all Muhurta graphs, then you can easily find all of them by just typing a bit of Muhurta. You can type any of these descriptions here. So we've looked at the Panchanga, we've looked at the transit planetary strengths, we've looked at the retrogression. But there are 3 other charts here. Now let's look at the transit impact on natal planets. So in this case, this is the impact on the natal chart and of the transit planets. You know, so it's different from what's going on in the sky for the natal planets, but it is actually, you know, calculating the transit over the natal, which is very important, very important. I mean, really, you should look at both. So again, you know, you can zoom out, and you can switch the. If you click on multi-factor, then you get a different scoring scheme. So this is based on whether the sign or Varga that's being involved is benefic or malefic. So this is, you know, actually very powerful. I mean, if you look in Parasha and other texts, a lot of the time, the analysis is being done strictly on whether the sign is benefic or malefic. For example, Saturn and Mars in their own signs is generally considered negative. So that's a bit of a different view than what some people will follow. But that is, you know, something that you find in the classics. So there are 2 choices. Now down here, we have the choice of adding Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto to the retrogression, which is something that some people would be very interested in. And also you can do, you see the color coding, malefics, whether malefics are red and benefics are green, or vice versa. You can choose for yourself what that is based on this. So if Saturn's coming out green, then that's, you can switch it here and then Saturn comes out red. It's just up to you. All right, let's try another graph. So we've got the Vimshoti Dashas and events. Now, what this is doing is taking the natal chart. This is the Vimshoti Dasha of the natal chart. That's why the name is given here and it's red. But what you're looking at is the date, is around the date of the transit chart or the secondary chart, the blue one. So this is the Dashas for April this year. And what we're seeing is basically it's color coded by the natural colors of the planet. So you see Venus, Mahadasha, Venus Antardasha, Mercury, Pratyantardasha, Jupiter, this Sukshma Dasha, and the Prana Dasha, the 5th level, is Ketu. You can see at a glance. Now, of course, this can be zoomed out tremendously. And you can see for a year, you can see for a decade, or you can even do 100 years. So what you see here is, you know, he was born a long time ago. So this starts from his birth, 1893, and it gives 100 years. So for most people, that will be sufficient. So you can see, I mean, the nice thing about this is you can't go beyond the Pratyanta Dashas because they'll be too small. So that's why it's reduced. But you can see the progression of the Dashas and the Antardashas, and you can drag, for the typical chart, this marker of the time will be somewhere in the 100 years, and then you can drag it around. So you can actually, if you have one of these on the page, you can shift around over an entire lifetime without fiddling with the time change anywhere else. So these are the main features of this particular chart. And if you have entered any events, which I like to do, like I ask people to give me a few events, I enter them into the software, which is very simple. You just go up to edit and then events data for primary, or you just press shift plus control plus E for events. And then you get this. So you can type something in, let's say anything, marriage, children, accidents, traveling, new job, whatever, you like. You just put in the description, the date and the time and click add. And when you click OK, it's saved to the disk and then the event will appear here. So we'll call this something like event 1. And then we say, let's put this in, say, 1933. So when you type 2 digits, it'll jump to the next. So you can say, right, suppose this is, and we're using day, month, year. So suppose this is the 13th of February. So 13021933. And then Alt A for add is the fastest way, or you click the add button, you click OK, and now there it is. So if you entered many events, you'll see them on the Dasha graph, and that can be quite informative. So there's one more Muhurta graph that's of extremely great value, I would say, in my experience, which is the Muhurta ingress chart. So this chart provides ingresses for up to 5 years for the planets, either in Rashi or Nakshatra. So you see here it says SG for sign. If we click on this, then now we're getting all the Nakshatra ingresses. So this is 2021. You can see K2 starts in Jeshtar, and then it goes into Anuradha. This is the date. So here, this is the 1st of June. I mean, if you're using if the program is set to American, you'll get 6/1 here. So in terms of these slow-moving planets, this is very handy. And then, of course, for the moon, you have to zoom in. So you can do a month and you see the moon's changing. And so in each this is nakshatra. So here we see April 13th, Bharani, Kritika, Rohini. And the color coding helps because if it's a bit small, you can't see the name of the nakshatra. At least you can see who the ruler is. And then you can zoom in even further. So now you're getting you're getting a clear idea of when the time is. And there's a new feature coming which will snap to the time. So we can go down to the day. If you go down to the day, the time is given when any change takes place. And then it takes a moment to calculate. We get 5 years. So the 5-year result is really mainly for studying Jupiter, Saturn, Rahu, and Ketu. So you can see what is going on. See Saturn. So Uttarashada, and then Shravana, and then Dhanishta, and then Shatabhishaj, then back into Dhanishta, and then back into Shatabhishaj, and then Purvabhadra, and then back into Shatabhishaj. So you can see the way the whole thing is playing. And if we go for the signs, then this is, you see. Now, if it's Capricorn and Aquarius, you get the little line and the date. But of course, the color is the same with this natural color scheme. If we go with dignity, well, it's basically the same. And then you can have malefic, benefic, which will also be the same for Saturn. But it is, if you're really interested in what's going on in the stars, then looking at the you're looking for green, basically. I mean, even Saturn and Mars, we like them to be in benefic signs. So may damage the sign a bit, but it's good for the planet. So this is a very useful choice. And we can add in Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto if we want. So that is also here. So you've got the signs and the nakshatras and the retrogression for the outer planets if you want them all listed here. So that's the basic idea of the Muhurta graphs. And they are very powerful and can be extremely useful. So I recommend them to you. Good. I hope that was enjoyable.
That was very good. I do like the Muhurata graphs very much, especially the sign ingress as well as the retrograde. I use them all the time.
Yes, they're very handy.
And Richard has asked, why do not make an option for square charts in transit?
I'm not fully understanding that question.
Yeah. Okay. That's it, I think.
I mean, the thing is that when you're doing transits, we haven't really studied transits. This is the Muhurta. Maybe next time we'll look at transits as one of the topics.
Okay. I think, Andrew, it's been quite a long day.
Yes, I think so.
There are no other questions. So we will, if you have any questions, keep them for next week. And tomorrow we have, let me just look at the program. And so I can put my video on as well. So tomorrow, 18th of April, we have Sanjay continuing with his Ritu Chakra. And then there's a plenary. All the teachers will be here, hopefully all of them. So we get to ask questions. And then is followed by my class, which is on Dina Lordship's key, Dina Lord, key to immunity and vitality. So we shall see you all tomorrow. And thank you, Andrew, again for this very educative class, as well as your earlier 12th house class. So we can go. And good night.